Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this lunchtime webinar, looking at why data is key to Good ESG. I'm delighted to have Deborah Madden along with us today. She is the Group Environmental and Quality Advisor with Henry Brothers, and we're going to talk to Deborah later in the webinar about Henry Brothers' approach to ESG and how they use the data within their own business. As well. So just before we speak with Deborah, I'm going to take a quick run through this slide deck, just looking at why data is key to Good ESG. Okay, and we're going to take a look at some of those drivers. What is driving ESG sustainability up the agenda within organizations? What are some of the challenges associated with it? Why we ultimately need it? And what are the benefits of having it, having access to ESG for both the top and the bottom line for the business as well. And then taking a look at how, if we've got access to the data, how we can use it to take a more data-led approach to business. So firstly, just a little bit about myself. My name is Liam McEvoy and I'm one of the co-founders of SystemIQ. My background is in environmental sustainability, working mainly within construction and manufacturing for 18 years. So I've been working in this space for a while, and I suppose one of the biggest challenges throughout my whole career has been gaining access to ESG data, because I needed to get access to it to report back to clients, to regulators, and other stakeholders, and so on. So SystemIQ was born out of that need to find a solution to make it easy for companies to capture the information and then be able to report on it. Okay, so just a little bit more about what SystemIQ is. And we are a software solution that improves how organizations measure, monitor, and report on their social, environmental, and economic performance. And our main goal is to make the information more visible so that organizations can use it, can harness the intelligence from their ESG data and use it within the boardrooms and used by senior management to make strategic decisions and ultimately inform their business plan so they can be more competitive and they can improve their top and bottom line. So we'll take a look at a little bit more at SystemIQ later on in the webinar and how it might be able to benefit your own organizations as you start your ESG journey. But before we do, we'll take a look at what ESG is and what it means to your organizations. So just firstly jumping in, what is ESG? So ESG is environmental social governance. Sustainability as a whole, as you all will know, has been on a journey. Huge focus back in the early 2000s around environmental. Around 2012, 2013, there was a bit of a shift towards social impact, where we started to see a lot of firms having to report on their social value, apprenticeships, placements, all of that good stuff. About 2 years ago, we've seen another shift towards supply chains, procurement, and we've kind of come full circle now. Again, we're back talking around, in particular, carbon emissions, net zero, and so on. So sustainability as a whole has evolved and has been on a journey, and so too, I suppose, it's a language that we now use to talk about it. So CSR, corporate responsibility, and most recently now ESG, environmental social governance. Just in terms of examples of some of the data that we'll be talking about today, some of the ESG data that we will be talking about. With regards to environmental, we'll be looking at greenhouse gas emissions, particularly across construction sites and so on. Water usage, conservation, biodiversity, waste management, and noise, dust and vibration, for example, would be just some examples of environmental data you'll be looking to capture. Then with regard social data, social value, again, looking at the apprenticeships and placement opportunities your organization is maybe providing across all the different projects, training opportunities internally and externally, so basically investments in your people, diversity and inclusion strategies and initiatives, health and well-being strategies and initiatives, and safety initiatives as well that you may be rolling out across the sites. And then looking at community impact, community partners, volunteering that you carry out as an organization, all those education engagements that maybe you carry out with universities, colleges, schools, and so on, charitable donations, and those charity partners that you work with throughout the year. And then looking at the governance, in particular, responsible supply chains, responsible procurement, and then more like corporate governance as well, in terms of having the the policies, the procedures, and so on in place to embed that trust with stakeholders, and that you've got the correct structures in place as an organization. So just some examples of the types of ESG data that we're going to be looking at and talking about today. And I suppose then just looking quickly at some of those drivers, those ESG drivers that are really pushing it up the agenda. Obviously, most recently we had COP26 in Glasgow, creating a lot of noise across the media and so on. But I suppose, look, those of you that have been working in construction in particular for a while, you know, we're all used to seeing sustainability within contracts, the contract clauses, certainly within the tendering process as well, and we're used to seeing the likes of BREEAM, LEED, SQL, all these different sustainability assessments being part of the contracts and therefore a deliverable. But other drivers that I suppose over the last couple of years have had a big impact would be around expectations. So certainly clients and customers now expect their contractors, for example, to be a lot more transparent and to be able to demonstrate their credentials, their ESG credentials with regards to their own performance. So there's definitely a drive there, and we're seeing that coming through more and more in terms of the level of reporting that's required. The staff now as well, certainly if you're looking to retain or attract new employees into the business, employees are a lot more aware, and they want to work for more responsible businesses, and those companies that are maybe their vision and values are more aligned with their own personal vision and values as well. So it's important that you're able to communicate your own sort of ESG performance as well with your staff. Certainly supply chains as well, and building that responsible supply chain, and you know, looking in terms of governance as well, in terms of how those suppliers are being approved, and their own credentials, their own ESG reporting requirements as well. And then the public are obviously a lot more aware. And again, they place an expectation, particularly on contractors, to make sure that projects are being developed properly and positively impacting the community as well as environment and so on. Then there's other national, international drivers such as the legislation. So we had the Paris Agreement, obviously, which has had a big impact with the UK government, you know, announcing the 2050 commitments and the targets and so on to be net zero by 2050, and that's having a knock-on effect now across all sectors. As a result, we're seeing more and more legislation starting to come through, such as the CERC regulations, the Streamlined Energy Carbon Reporting regs. So companies over 30 million are there around now reporting their carbon emissions back to Companies House for their financial returns. So there's a clear sort of direction of travel there, aligning company financial performance with the carbon emissions being produced by the business as well. Then there's ESOS, which again has been around for a couple of years, the Energy Saving Opportunity Scheme. The Chancellor obviously announced a couple of months back the UK government's intentions to have all large companies disclose their ESG performance, and the sustainability disclosure regs as part of that. We're seeing social value climb up the agenda as well, with 20% of public procurement tenders by next September, I believe, having up to 20% weighting in the tendering piece as well. So the UK government is definitely accelerating ahead with regards their approach, particularly to the net zero agenda. And then the UN Sustainable Development Goals, even though they've been around for a while, we're now starting to see more and more businesses align with a certain number of UN SDGs, and they're talking about them a lot more, and they're reporting back on progress towards those ESGs as well. So certainly still a driver. For those of you maybe operating in the Republic of Ireland as well, so we've seen a big drive, particularly recently with the green public procurement. And again, that's making its way across public sector and public procurement projects, resulting in green tenders, the Climate Action Plan 2019, the Waste Action Plan for Circular Economy, and the NZEB standard as well coming out through the building regs. So huge amount of activity around ESG in the Republic of Ireland as well that companies need to get on top of. And then in terms of some of the hot topics that this is all sort of generated, obviously net zero at the minute is what we all seem to be talking about, but it's not just net zero. ESG is all environmental, social and governance. So circular economy is still a big focus for a lot of businesses in terms of how they design and procure products and materials, for example. Social return on investment, again, very much linked to the social value within tendering, but companies having to report back on social return on investment using the likes of Tom's national framework in terms of the different metrics to calculate the true impact to the public purse, for example, through a lot of these apprenticeship and placement opportunities, for example, that have been provided through projects. Huge focus continues on packaging, plastics, building responsible supply chains, and then ultimately just increasing transparency right across the organization. So just some of the key drivers there driving the ESG up the agenda. But again, for those of you working within the construction space, it's nothing new. It's been around for quite a while, certainly within the UK public sector contracts, with contractors having to report back on environmental, social and economic performance. The likes of those sustainability assessments such as BREEAM or SQL or LEED, for example. And then also the Consider Constructor scheme, with most projects being registered. And again, that's a third-party assessment being carried out by an assessor coming in to really assess the environmental, social and economic performance of a particular construction site. So, you know, over the years, we've all got quite used to reporting back on waste, greenhouse gas emissions, water and biodiversity, as well as those apprenticeship placement community impacts as well. So quite a few drivers there. I suppose looking at some of the challenges, the current challenges that organizations face with trying to capture ESG data, the big one is often to do with the information. The information often exists within businesses, but it's scattered across many departments, many sites. It's living on people's desktops or their laptops, and they don't think anyone else needs to see it, so they don't share it. But actually that information is critical to maybe somebody else's role within the business, and if they could get access to it, it would help them in their role in terms of reporting back to maybe a client or to a regulator and so on. So the big issue definitely is the amount of information required and the fact that it's often scattered across many departments, many different sites and so on. With regards to reporting across multiple sites, locations, departments as well, there's often an issue with the information being inaccurate, inconsistent. It's not being reported in a consistent way. And that's often to do with maybe people still using spreadsheets and mistakes being made. And the information that's being presented isn't being interrogated, and often then it leads to inaccurate data. So it's just important to try to make sure that whatever way it's being reported in a consistent way, that you can stand over the information, it's accurate, it's reliable. A lot of people look at this, they are quite overwhelmed by it in a lot of cases because there is a lot of reporting required. And so it's often associated with being a huge amount of work, onerous amount of paperwork, particularly coming from construction sites and so on as well. And then often there's just not enough resource allocated to it. So there's an issue with time, there's not enough resource in-house dedicated to help gather and collate the information and interpret it, and then also report on it as well. And I suppose the one thing that I think most people are starting to wake up to is ESG sustainability reporting. It's no longer a one-person job. It's not even a one-department job. It's ultimately everybody's responsibility now within the organization. No matter what your role is within the business, you will have some form of reporting to do with regards ESG sustainability performance of the business. And that's one of the things we do within SystemIQ, is to really enforce that message so that we can roll that reporting piece out across the whole organization. So in terms of why we need this information, why do we all need to access ESG data? Why does it need to be accurate and so on? And I suppose, look, I spoke about earlier about how sustainability as a whole has been on a journey, and it has evolved over the years. And as a result, so too has the level of reporting that is required. And now multiple people within an organization need access to that information. Multiple departments need access to that information. So directors, for example, need to make sure that the messaging piece going out around their organization is correct, to avoid greenwashing, for example, so that they want to make sure that they're doing what they say they're doing. Contract teams, for example, need to report back to clients at progress meetings. They need access. Bid management, tendering and estimating departments all need access to this information, particularly from previous historical projects that they can use within current tenders to help them win new work by providing the evidence that they're doing what they say they're doing. BD departments now using it to sort of showcase the business to attract new customers, new work. Compliance departments, again, those departments reporting to regulators, reporting back to clients on those assessments such as BREEAM, LEED, or SQL, all need access. Finance departments, most recently needing access to ESG data, particularly if they're looking to access finance, if they're looking for bank loans, for example. And banks now require a business to provide evidence of their ESG credentials, their sustainability performance, in order to access finances as well. HR departments all now needing access to the information as well, particularly if they're looking at that whole recruitment piece and trying to retain and attract new talent. And they're very much using the sustainability performance of the business to align with vision and values, so that they can present, the company at recruitment fairs and so on, and then marketing, PR, and comms, all needing it for the whole for their social media, for award submissions, and really in terms of the messaging piece and how they present the business and the sustainability performance of the business. But put simply, companies now need ESG data to make themselves more competitive, to save time, to build trust with their stakeholders, and reduce risk of non-compliance with contracts, with legislation, and also an accusation of greenwashing. And so as long as you've got the data, you can stand over your company performance. So what are the benefits then? If you were to make a start today, what are the benefits of having ESG data for your business? So looking at top line first, we've kind of touched on some of these, but companies are then able to use ESG data to build that client confidence piece, and take a lead maybe with certain environmental initiatives, or certainly within tenders and PQQs and so on, clearly show that they're leading with regards to their approach to sustainability and ESG. Obviously, ensuring compliance with legislation, industry contract requirements, increasing competitiveness in the PQQs and tenders, accessing finance, and attracting, retaining, and motivating talent, and helping to build and maintain a positive image, and importantly, avoiding greenwashing. But then also looking at the bottom line, if you're focusing in on ESG, there's a real opportunity there to drive efficiency. So really increasing visibility of performance, such as greenhouse gas emissions, waste, and water. So for us at SystemIQ, it's important that when we're working with our customers, that our customers all have full transparency across performance. So for example, they know all of the emissions that they're producing, the carbon emissions. They know if their emissions are scope 1, scope 2, or scope 3. They know how much they're producing, why they're producing it, when they're producing it, where they're producing it, and ultimately what they've got direct influence over or what they don't have direct influence over. And so it's that data that provides, that informs their net zero strategy, their ESG strategy as well. So having that information, it allows you to interrogate your company performance and ultimately take a more data-driven approach to your sustainability performance and strategy within the business. So really then using the performance to identify trends and therefore opportunities for improvement, particularly with energy efficiency and reducing waste and therefore associated costs as well. And really, eliminating any duplication and therefore, time obviously saving, and that time is obviously better spent elsewhere, reducing the risk of non-compliance. But obviously there's a real opportunity here for organizations to innovate and identify new and improved ways of working, and ultimately take the lead as well. So look, I've talked a lot there about the data, and for us at SystemIQ as well, it's about helping our customers take a more data-led approach to business and to their sustainability strategy. So it's been able to identify their baseline performance, to understand their actual current performance and what their progress looks like towards those targets and objectives that they've maybe got in place, those annual targets and objectives. A lot of our customers too will have targets and objectives around 2025 and even 2030. So again, being able to sort of use the data to really mark your performance and really calculate the impact that your investments are having. So as you invest in certain initiatives, for example, the data will tell you immediately or very, very quickly the impact that that's having on the business and whether or not it's having the desired impact or not. So really, we're all about making sure that our customers are using the data to take a more data-driven approach to how they obviously do business. And just to wrap up, and then we'll have a chat with Deborah at Henry Brothers. But in terms of how to get started, I'm sure a lot of you on the call today have already started on your journey. I suppose my advice would be to those of you that maybe haven't yet made a start, but thinking about it and wondering how to go about it. The first thing I would say is just get started. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just start recording performance, looking at your waste, your greenhouse gas emissions, your water. All of that information already exists in the business because you're paying a bill for it somewhere. So it's really just about accessing the data and start to record it as best you can. Understand the direction of travel across the industry. A huge amount of information out there at the minute, particularly around net zero, but also looking at the circular economy as well, and understanding what that looks like to your business in 2025, 2030, how it's going to impact you, and getting a plan in place to mitigate any negative impact as well. Looking at getting an ESG sustainability strategy in place. Everyone needs a roadmap, so I would certainly recommend that that you get a strategy in place with those targets and objectives, so you know where you are with regard to your baselines, you know your current performance, but you know where you're heading, and you know what you need to do in order to achieve those goals as well. I would familiarize yourselves with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and align with some of those that are maybe applicable to your own business and your own goals. A lot of businesses are now doing that. And make sure that whenever you start, you include as many roles and responsibilities within the business as possible. I said earlier, and it's very true, it's no longer a one person or a one department responsibility. Everyone in the business now has a reporting requirement. So the more people you involve from the outset, the sooner you get buy-in, and everyone understands the reason that the business is moving in this direction. Make sure you engage and communicate with all your stakeholders, particularly employees, clients, and supply chain, so that they understand your performance and your goals. Integrate as much as you can within existing management and operating procedures, such as ISO 14001 environmental management systems or something similar. So if you've got those processes and procedures already in place within your business, integrate ESG within it, so you can start to see that flow of information starting to come through from the different sites, departments, and management teams, and so on. Obviously, look, we're one tech solution. There's multiple tech options out there. I would explore all the digital tools that are available to see how they might help you capture this information. Tech has been a game changer in terms of how the information is captured, making it more accurate, more reliable, speeding up the amount, how quickly you can get your hands on the data. And how you then interpret it as well. So explore all the options available and see which ones are most beneficial to your business. But it's important, and a lot of organizations are guilty of this, it's important that you use the data. So capture it, but use it, interrogate it, and really understand what it's telling you, and use it to inform the business, because the trends that come through from different sectors, from different departments, from different sites, from different project teams, for example, it tells you a huge amount, it provides a huge amount of information that you can use to help guide the business, and make sure that information then finds its way into the boardroom, and it's being used to make those strategic decisions and those strategic investments, particularly around the net zero piece, and ultimately use it to become more data driven. So in terms of the big decisions, the big investments, if you have the data to sort of help guide that and inform that, it reduces the risk associated with those investments. Okay, folks, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview of ESG, what it is, the main drivers, the types of data that you should be capturing, and hopefully how you can maybe use it then within your own business. And if you haven't started, how you could maybe go about making a start. I would like to invite Deborah onto the call now. Deborah Madden is the Group Environmental and Quality Advisor over at Henry Brothers. They're one of our customers, and they're making huge advances with ESG, and in particular their approach to net zero as well. So Deborah, welcome. Thank you for joining us. You can hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear. Yes, can you hear me? Yes.
Can indeed, can
Good
indeed.
job.
That's great. So, Deborah, I suppose, look, delighted you could join us. Really, really appreciate you taking the time. We covered some examples there of the types of ESG data that we would capture for our customers in SystemIQ. Is there anything else I missed there? Would there be other examples of data there that you guys would be capturing from site that maybe it would be useful to sort of for people to know in terms of how in terms of how they could really demonstrate their own performance, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we start with the basics. Obviously, resource efficiency was always very strong, the past 5 years. Then obviously the incorporation of SystemIQ, the app, we could really identify that there was, a gap analysis of different areas that we weren't capturing, but, we were doing on sites, doing across all of our sites and even our static offices, areas like people, health and diversity, community initiatives. It was also fantastic that we could align as well to BREEAM responsibilities in terms of, capturing biodiversity initiatives on site, if it were on a particularly sensitive site, as we have had in the past, like ASSIs, you can create a biodiversity log, which also will demonstrate your, your regulatory compliance as well in areas like that there. And, and in terms of, community initiatives, we could really, because we always had, as you say, Liam, this information is always available within your business, but it's taking that out and putting that into, a visible snapshot of what you can see on the SystemIQ dashboard. It's that visibility that you can really monitor and measure your ESG performance. And you can see areas where, you're lacking and you're thinking, we could really target this and, put plans in place to really put a strategy to, help drive this within the business, as you say. And, you can see, across like water and waste, you're thinking your waste in that site, well, hold on, what's the difference between this site and that site? You go on the site, you have conversations, you create new waste streams, stuff like that there, you can liaise with your waste contractors, stuff like that there. So it is so diverse and, it really gives us the opportunity to look at what more we can capture that we are doing, as you say, across the business and on our sites.
Yeah, perfect. No, it is. I mean, when you look at the amount of data that you need to capture, it can be overwhelming for people. So it is important that, we break it down into bite-sized chunks and just make a start. I suppose, Deborah, I'd be interested to know even just, because, I would be familiar with you guys and I know you are making huge strides forward in terms of how the reporting has evolved within Henry Brothers. I know obviously now you're a customer of ours, but prior to that, was there an issue in the consistency and the accuracy and the reliability of the data coming through, and how, I suppose, like how you have improved that to make sure that what's coming through you can really ultimately stand over as a business?
Yeah, that obviously was extremely key because, we were starting with these huge big databases on Excel. I'm sure everybody's familiar with them. They're not, and it's not an enjoyable task. It's not a visual snapshot. You're going through tabs and tabs and you're thinking to yourself, right, this needs to be standardized, it needs to be, visuals, to say, but basically, so we have more standardized processes and procedures in place. We have a monitor and measuring procedure, which is obviously embedded into our IMS or even down to our site project, site packs. There's the consistency again across all of our site management. They have accountability and responsibility to ensure that they upload that data. It's there. They use their QR code systems and taking advantage of that. So data is captured at source, and it means prior to that, we were using just ESOS and we were trying to scale all the site management, can give us your data, give us your data, give us your data. And there would have been lags within that data as well. And you're putting it into the database and you're thinking, is this right? Is this accurate? And it was, obviously we took it as best as we can, but SystemIQ really started to marginalize that and really, put that into the one area where, it's there. There's really not that much room for, inefficiency essentially or inaccuracy with the data. So so it's great, standardization and real-time capture has been fantastic. And, it takes away from that laborious process as well of scaling through the spreadsheets that we were using before. So it's worked really well.
No, I think you're right. And I think, look, it's been, there's we touched on the drivers and the reasons now that we now need access to this information. But, whenever you look at, yourselves, you're UK wide, and you have a lot of clients, a lot of reporting requirements there. Even internally, have you seen over the years, and in your own role as Group Environmental and Quality Advisor, have you seen an increase in the amount of roles within Henry Brothers that are now coming to your department looking this information? You know, I know from my own experience, I've seen a growth from departments that previously wouldn't even have had any interest in anything to do with sustainability. Now they have a reporting requirement. So you've seen that yourself?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, it seems to be a harmonious relationship now between your QS departments, your procurement, which is probably most critical in an area we're actually really focusing on now, in tandem with our Scope 3 emissions. You know, we really need to work back and forward with that, because we're getting so much pressure from the likes of tenders coming in on clients, you know, requesting this and they need this, and we're like thinking, you know, we need to be one step ahead of that and ensuring that we have this data readily and available. And, you know, a crossover as well, you know, we're doing our CR strategy right now, and that's HR, you know, PR is all involved in that as well. You know, your QSs, it's, you know, and also finance as well, you know, they need to be aware of, you know, well, can you share your data for like the strategic energy and carbon reporting, stuff like that there. ASOS phase 2 compliance, which is coming up. So, you know, it's great that you say it wasn't segregated, it wasn't in isolation within like a Q&A department or a compliance department. You know, it's fantastic now that it binds everybody, the company together. And I suppose, you know, we did fear, you know, we're asking sites for, you know, data, you know, are they understanding this? So it's basically, it reinforces the need for the data, you know, and they can see that through, you know, external reporting, and you know how we progress in-house, you know, and obviously PR and winning awards and stuff like that there. You know, this essentially is from the data. So it's so key and it's so important. But, you know, on a site management level, feedback as well is really crucial, you know, and keep on top of that. Monthly visit, even a weekly phone call. How are you getting on? Everything fine? Any issues? You know, the likes of the QR code system might not be working in the office, so we got to be helped going up. And, you know, with the guys do it when they come in, the ladies do it too when they come in. So yeah, it's really binded a lot of departments. You know, it's interdepartmental, so it's great.
It's interesting just to hear you talk. You know, you're just chatting through the different roles, different departments and so on, but it is clear listening to you how sustainability is very much now core to Henry Brothers, and everything that you guys do as a business, and it's now impacting everyone across the organization. And I think as a result of that, Deborah, I think we're seeing it as well, you know, across other sectors. Companies and organizations have now made the link between sustainability and business performance, and they're no longer like a separate thing. It's no longer just a wee add-on or a wee page on the website. It's a critical part of the strategic business plan ultimately. So it is no, and listening to you talk, it's clear that that's very much the case at Henry Brothers. You mentioned something there actually, Deborah, that I know you guys are doing, and I know a lot of people are still grappling with trying to figure out best way forward. You were mentioning the QR codes. So a lot of companies are struggling to get a handle on Scope 3 emissions, particularly around staff commuting maybe, but also supplier transport. And again, knowing some of the projects that you guys are involved in, there's often a lot of like the BREEAM or the lead assessments or SQL assessments that you have to report back all of this data on. So I suppose it'd be useful to know how have you approached that? Because everyone's at the start of this journey with regard to Scope 3 emissions, and Scope 3 obviously is continuing to evolve day by day. You know, there's more and more coming out about it in terms of what we need to be capturing. But I suppose it'd be useful to get an idea of Henry's approach to net zero, and in particular how you're sort of getting over the challenge of capturing Scope 3 emissions around supply chain, particularly the amount of suppliers that must be coming to your sites day to day, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's, as I said, that's now our target area. Before that, it was a paper signing book, which I know some sites are still using. There's a couple of our guys still using it too, and I'm like, no, it's just not the best way to go about it. Yes, you're going through reams and reams and reams and typing this in. It's just, and you know yourself, people don't give the most up-to-date or the most accurate information. So obviously the use of QR codes was, you know, revolutionary. It was fantastic. We're like, this is great. We can capture it at source. It's all there. It's all live. We can pull it off whenever we need. But, you know, that essentially gathers all that data, you know, that's your sign into site, you know, you have your different categories, you know, if you're hybrid, petrol, diesel, whatever, if you walk, if you cycle, even better. So, and then in terms of our supply chain, obviously in our deliveries, again, you know, it is still, we're piloting it and it is working very well on a couple of our sites, but you know, there is difficulties, you'll overcome them, but it's just working with the site management team and also working with your supply chain and with procurement, because what we've had to do is make like a standardized, you know, procurement minimum standards to give out to our supply chain, you know, to ensure that they comply as when they come onto a Henry Brothers site, that this is what you need to do and this is how you need to sign in, because the purpose is capturing this data, this carbon data. You know, they're probably alien to it as well. They were like, oh, we've never been asked this before on different sites, but I think the more the construction companies, you know, start to feed this on, you know, the more useful, you know, what's the word I'm looking for, you know, common knowledge it'll be for them to pick it up. So yeah, that still remains a task, but it's one that we're definitely working on and working with our site teams and also our supply chains and procurement teams on. It is a struggle, but I think at the start, SystemIQ is also a struggle. So it's really just homing that in and making it familiar for everybody, essentially.
And I would say, as a company, you have really embraced your whole sort of approach to net zero, and you have really challenged us actually as I suppose as a tech solution to help you achieve that, but in terms of working together with you guys to sort of overcome those challenges, you know, and you know, one of the challenges unfortunately that we've all had to deal with is COVID, and you know, the QR codes for example with yourselves helped overcome that, because suppliers in particular, staff, they're using their own mobile devices, so it's you know, they're not sharing screens or anything, so it was kind of COVID proof as well. So you just keep us on our toes, Deborah, it's fair to say, in terms of continuing to develop to help you guys meet your requirements as well. I suppose, Deborah, just to kind of to finish up, I know you guys are you, in terms of the projects that you're on at the minute, I believe you're on a net zero project at the minute, so you're already, as a contractor, you're already starting to see then net zero work its way into contracts. So how has that changed, I suppose, in terms of the operations on site? Has that had a big impact on teams yet, or are you starting to see more gradual change as I think contracts teams start to adapt to the new ways of working?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, our first contract, our net zero carbon in Staffordshire University, which is it's great and it's fantastic to see. You know, be studying this in university years ago, and you're thinking, you know, when's the landscape going to change? When are they going to start finally building projects like this? So, you know, fantastic to see that. And that's actually one of our sites that it's across all three scopes and across the whole broad spectrum of SystemIQ data capture. It's working really, really well. Operationally, I suppose, you know, until the market, in terms of like, you know, generators and diesels and Bowsers and plant and stuff like that there, until that market really takes off, and, you know, it's, you know, all contractors are on a level playing field in terms of, you know, procuring that, because there is a massive expense involved in that as well. You know, that'll change, but, you know, in terms of diesel and generator use, that's gone, you know, we're right on to the electricity feed right away. But again, that's not always practical or always possible in every project, you know, because it could take months. It just depends who you're dealing with. But no, so that's working fantastically there in terms of, you know, capturing all that data in scope 3, pure ecosystems all go. You know, and we are noticing as well that, you know, there's not as much, you know, feed or heavy data really on electricity use and stuff like that there. So given the nature of the project, but you know, even tender wise, you know, we're seeing we had a tender in there previously. You know, obviously a lot of the time it's based on price, it's heavily weighted on price, but we've seen one that was 60% sustainability. So it was quite a big return in terms of, you know, the documentation we had to provide and, you know, the response that we had to provide. So, and again, that challenged us as well. We're thinking, you know, this is what they're looking for, so this is how we need to change. And it's great to see that, because I think, you know, sustainability has, you know, it does have a like financial weighting as well, which will definitely, you'll see in the next few years, you know, it will have a bearing on the company. You know, if you don't have, you know, robust, you know, ESG data, you know, you will struggle to tender for net zero carbon projects and stuff like that, even like passive house projects, which we have coming up as well. So it's so important to, you know, get as much data as you can. If you haven't already started, you know, just start with the basics, you say. It's always wind up and, you know, start from there, and then from there you'll have your platform, you'll have your baseline. you'll be able to identify gaps, improvement, and also opportunities. If you want to go out, in terms of social governance, go into your communities, your local communities, engage with your employees, just take it from there. So, it's good to see the landscape change in that way. I think it's really positive.
I completely agree. I've been working in this space a while now, and it is great to finally see it so high on the agenda. I suppose my one concern with it all would be it is moving at such a fast pace. We run the risk of leaving people behind. But again, organisations, our partners, for example, such as business in the community, and also the CEF, are offering climate literacy courses to help contractors start to upskill their supply chain around the language even that we're now using to do with net zero. So there is a lot of resource out there and a lot of help, and I suppose we would just encourage everyone to reach out and get that help, get that resource. But I thought that was a really good way to wrap up, Deborah, in terms of how you finished up there. If you haven't made a start, make a start. You need this ESG data. It is critical to the business now going forward. So many people now need it, they rely on it, be it for reporting or whatever, winning new work through tenders and so on. So I just thought you hit the nail on the head. If you haven't started, make a start, and start with the basics, and get a kind of good little reporting structure in place for that, and then just build on that. So Deborah, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on board. And it is always interesting to hear more about Henry Brothers, because you are definitely one of the leaders in this space. And your approach, but also your enthusiasm to ESG as a company. You can see it across all levels in the organization. So it's really encouraging. And thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. So folks, I think that's us. We want to try to keep it to the 45 minutes, so that we don't encroach too much on people's lunchtime. I hope you all find that useful. Just to quickly finish up a little bit more just about us, and then I let you go. So in terms of SystemIQ, what we offer, and as I say, we're currently working with Henry Brothers on this. We're a ESG sustainability reporting software solution, and we work across these 4 pillars. So we help our customers measure, monitor, and report on their responsible procurement, environmental management, people health and diversity, and community engagement and partnering. So if you're recording across those 4 pillars, you've got a pretty good handle on your sustainability performance. SystemIQ is cloud-based. It's integrated real time. Back to what Deborah was saying, we're eliminating the lag. The information's coming through from site immediately. Multi-user, multi-site, no limit on users, no limit on sites. It's been built with ISO in mind, so the data entry is all standardized, and that ensures the information coming through is accurate, it's reliable, you can stand over it. And as carbon in particular is being monetized more and more, it's important that you have accurate information, so that you know what you're reporting on is reliable and accurate, and ultimately we help increase transparency of performance across our customers' organization. So SystemIQ lets our customers know what they're doing really well, but also maybe what's not going so well, and maybe what needs a little bit more focus going forward. There's four key benefits there our customers are getting from using SystemIQ. I won't go through all those stats today, but the 4 key benefits are increasing competitive advantage. Our customers have the data to back up that they're doing what they say they're doing. They can include that within tenders and PQQs to help make themselves more competitive. They can really also step up and take the lead on a number of initiatives as they build that confidence piece with their clients. Because ESG reporting is quite resource heavy, tech helps to reduce that significantly. And so we're seeing on average around 30-34% time saving by using our tech solution. SystemIQ then and the data within it helps you build trust with all your stakeholders, your clients, your suppliers, your employees, and the members of the public and the local communities in which you're all working as well. And then ultimately reducing the risk risk of non-compliance with contracts, with legislation, but also with any accusations of greenwashing as well. As long as you've got the data to stand over what you say you're doing, you can stand over your performance and any messaging that you're putting out there. Okay, we also produce a lot of infographics. So we've lots of reports in our SystemIQ dashboard. All the information comes into one big visual dashboard, and we've got a reporting library, so we have a lot of customized reports within the library for the likes of CERC or for BREEAM or for LEED or whatever it might be. But our customers came back asking for some more visual reports that they could use to increase staff engagement, and they could share within their own organizations. And that led to our infographic builder. So you're able to create lots of very visual infographic reports based on your performance, and you can produce those per pillar, per department, per site, or for the whole company. And there's just lots of filters to help you sort of create those as well. So they have a big impact with regards to staff engagement as well. So look, we're working with lots of companies across lots of different sectors now. We're in just over 600 sites across the UK and Ireland. So we've loads of really good case studies. We're more than happy to share those with anyone. And if anyone would like to get in touch to find out how we can maybe help you with your own ESG sustainability journey, please do so. You can get us at hello@systemiq.com or give us a call. All the details are on the website. So thank you again for that. So I think that's it, folks. Just checking to make sure there's no other questions there. No, if anyone has any other questions afterwards, please send them to hello@systemiq.com, and as I say, we can get back to you on that. But other than that, thank you all so much for your time and for joining us today. And thank you again, Deborah.
Thank you, Liam. Yes, thank you very much.
We'll speak soon.
Okay. All right.
Take
Bye.
care. Thanks. Cheers. Bye.